Okay, we are not finished. We have a big afternoon. Before we return to the slides, I promised that I would answer some questions. So I will do my very best to answer the questions here. They're being translated into English so that I can look at them here. Some of the questions are similar to other questions, so I will try to do my very best to answer them in general. So what I'd like to do, translators, may I read the question and then I will read the response. Is that good? Okay. So we have a question asking about the holographic nature of reality, the holographic nature of knowledge. The question says, is knowledge holographic? In other words, if you know something in one place, is that knowledge everywhere? The question is it possible to say that we already know everything? This is a very good question. And I'm going to discuss this in a couple of different ways. What the new science has discovered in only the last few years is that knowledge is not something that we store in our brain. Did you know that information is not kept in your brain? I had the opportunity a few years ago. I got to see Albert Einstein's brain in a jar. It's at the University of Kansas in the United States. Albert Einstein's brain, after his death, they removed his brain because scientists wanted to see what was different. What made his brain different than your brain or my brain? And do you know what the difference is? Zero. There is no difference. His brain looked pretty much like everyone else's brain. It had just a few more little wrinkles. What scientists have discovered is that the information, your memory of your past, your memory of your experience, is not in your brain. It is in the field. It is in the divine matrix. And your brain is the antenna that tunes into the place in the divine matrix where that information lives. And other people, if they know how, they can tune to that information as well. It means there are no secrets. There are no secrets. It makes the military crazy. Because how can you keep a secret when there are no secrets? So the information of your life, of your memory, of your history, the information of the secrets of the universe, they do not reside in one person's brain. They are in this field that we call the divine matrix. So the question, is it possible to say that we already know everything? The answer is that the information to everything already exists. The question then becomes, can we have the feeling in our heart to create the antenna in our mind that tunes to the information that already exists? When you ask a question of knowledge, what you are doing is you are initiating the process. You ask the question, I wonder how life began. And you have a feeling in your body about that question, and that feeling helps you to grow the right patterns of nerves in your brain so that those nerves can find that information in the holographic field. It's already there. How many have heard of the term remote viewing? Remote viewing. Anyone heard of remote viewing? The United States military uses remote viewing, and it uses it because it works. Remote viewing is the opportunity for one person to be in a room like this, and they close their eyes, and they have a feeling in their heart. And when they have that feeling, their consciousness is able to see anywhere in the world, into the battlefield of Iraq, into a building on the other side of the country, into a field in Germany, because that information is already there. So in remote viewing, people are trained to close their eyes, go to an altered state of consciousness, and in that altered state, they move through the field of holographic information, and they can smell, they can see, they can hear what is happening in another place, because you and I are not limited to these bodies. Information is holographic, so the answer is yes. Information is holographic. Another question: how does the sacred feminine principle interact in the current global transformation? How does the feminine, what role does the feminine play in the change that we're seeing in our world today? That's a good question. Because what we're talking about is the power of human emotion, the power of feeling, the power of intuition, which is something that has always come more naturally to the feminine. Sorry, gentlemen. Men have historically been trained to discount or deny the power of their emotions. Isn't that interesting? Men who historically, physically have been the strongest of the species have been conditioned to deny the very experience that gives them even more power in their lives, the power of human emotion and the power of human feeling. So ladies, the feminine is playing a vital role. You play a vital role because your mind and your body are created. You are wired, hardwired to experience emotion in ways that most men in most societies are only beginning to remember. So ladies, you are leading in this respect. And it's changing. Men are becoming more comfortable with this now, but it's a very important question. It's a good question. There's another question: how do you know when you're using your heart and when you're using your mind disguised as your heart? Good question. Did that translate okay? Are you okay with that? In other words, I think the question is, how do you know when you're having a feeling and how do you know when you're having a thought? We're going to talk about this when we go into the monasteries, because this is the great secret of creation. This is the great secret of how we heal. But I'll give you a piece of the answer right now, is that if you are in your heart has no judgment. Your heart has no ego. Your heart does not know evil, good, right, wrong, light, dark. Your heart knows only what is without the judgments that we attach to that. And this is very important for where we're going in just a few minutes. The question: how does the divine matrix, what role does it play in reincarnation? Reincarnation. You know, in the Judeo-Christian traditions, reincarnation was a part of our culture until it was edited out, until the books were taken away that talk about reincarnation. Almost every other spiritual and religious tradition allows for reincarnation, Christianity did until those books were edited. Books like the Gospel of Thomas. We're going to look at the Gospel of Thomas in just a moment. Books like the first book of Adam and Eve, the second book of Adam and Eve. They talk about reincarnation in the soul and the body. They talk about the creation of our body and the creation of the soul, and how this body is created separately from the soul, and how the soul how our bodies had to be made in just the right way to hold the power of the soul in this world. So in our culture, we lost that information. Others did not. But the divine matrix now is bridging those differences. The divine matrix gives science and spirituality a common language. The divine matrix is also what is believed to be the heavens. The heavens that we talk about in the ancient traditions, in the ancient past. So when our soul leaves our body at the time of death, where does it go? It goes into the higher dimensional spaces of the divine matrix. Now this is interesting. As a scientist, 25 years ago, as a scientist, if I walked onto a stage like this and I said to an audience, there are many higher dimensions where we may be conscious in experience, I would be laughed off of the stage, because scientists did not recognize higher dimensions. They recognized 3, maybe 4 dimensions. Today, however, the new theories of physics, they say that we live in a world, at least 25 dimensions exist in the universe as we know it now. So, scientists, physicists talk about higher dimensions a lot. The divine matrix, these higher dimensions, provide the place for the energy of the soul to move in between lifetimes. As we begin to look at the ancient traditions from this new language, it helps us to understand what those people of our past really understood and what we're only beginning to understand today. Okay, there are other questions that are very good questions, and they lead directly to where we're going anyway. So I will answer the questions by continuing with the program, and we'll look at more questions after the break. Okay, if we do that? Is that okay? Good.